Human beings are capable of building incredible structures, from the latest cutting-edge office blocks to artistic sculptures. Cathedrals, sporting arenas, and monuments all over the world are a testament to our creative skill as a species. In the modern era, though, we have technology to help us, from huge mechanical drills to laser-cutting curved glass. Builders didn't have these luxuries in ancient times, so how did they manage to create some of the ancient wonders we're about to show you in this video? Science still doesn't have the answers. Asuka in Japan is where we start our journey, with these huge megalithic stone structures, which have stood in place for centuries. They were clearly carved and arranged in their current formation for a specific purpose, but nobody knows what that purpose is. There is speculation that they may have been sacrificial altars, or platforms upon which people watched and worshipped the stars, but they're just guesses. Most impressive of all of them is Sakafune Ishi, which is covered in complicated tracks and engravings. Also worthy of note is Masudo Iwafune, which is 36 feet long and nearly 16 feet high, and seems to have been carved out of a lump of pure granite. The granite is so thick that even modern technology would struggle to scratch the surface. So how is it carved and shaped 2,500 years ago? Even more mysterious is the Isho no Hoden, which is attached to a boulder around 60 miles from the rest of the structures. Weighing around 600 tons and standing 23 feet high, it looks like it was abandoned before it was finished, but it's been precisely cut down one side to give it its strange appearance. Whoever built it moved 600 tons of rock and carved it into shape without leaving a trace of a chisel or pickaxe on the surface. The temples of Shravangabelagola in India are equally perplexing to scientists. They are more than 1,000 years old and have perfectly carved columns, all of which are intricately detailed and display absolute symmetry. Such work might be possible today with skilled artisans using lathes and chisels, but the workers of the time had no such instruments. These columns are beautiful, polished, and patterned to the point where visiting tourists can't help but touch them when they pay a visit. Did we know more about stonework 1,000 years ago than we do today? Did we lose a secret civilization of master craftsmen without a trace centuries ago? Who could have constructed these temples, and how did they do the work? We still don't have complete scientific agreement on how the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids, but a recent discovery nearby them is even harder to understand. Archaeologists have found 24 black boxes, all of which are carved from solid Aswan granite and weigh more than 100 tons, buried inside a system of caves inside a hill. The carving has been performed with such skill and accuracy that it would be considered a phenomenal achievement in the 21st century, but these boxes were crafted 3,300 years ago. They are now known as the Serapeum of Saqqara, which implies that they're part of a temple to the Egyptian god Serapis. But that's guesswork. It might have taken the work of a god to create the boxes, because science doesn't have any better answers. Out in the Ural Mountains, researchers have found a series of objects so out of place and bizarre that they've been forced to consider the possibility that they came from a crashed alien spaceship. They were first found in the banks of rivers near the mountains in 1991, and they take the form of minuscule coils, the kind you might find in an engine or a modern piece of machinery. The problem is that they couldn't have been used in such a way, because they're 300,000 years old. Along with the coils are what appear to be engine shafts. The Russian Academy of Sciences has analyzed the artifacts and concluded that they're composed of copper and tungsten, and range in size from a little over an inch to 1/10,000th of an inch. That's small enough for them to be considered nanotechnology by modern standards. The objects were buried 40 feet below the surface of the river, with the geology of the rocks around them confirming their age, so they weren't put there recently. The combined efforts of specialist facilities in Helsinki, Moscow, and St. Petersburg have been unable to confirm how they could have been created or by who. That leaves us with aliens or time travelers as prime suspects. Things are supposed to get bigger and better with technology. so you probably expect that the record for largest granite block ever carved by humans to be broken every year. In reality, that record belongs to a giant monolith in Baalbek, Lebanon, and has stood for somewhere between 9 and 12,000 years. The rock forms part of the Temple of Jupiter, and some feel that it was the work of the Romans, but historian Graham Hancock disagrees. He feels the stones are the work of a lost civilization, and the Romans simply built the temple on top of them. Weighing over 1,000 tons each, it's impossible to imagine how any civilization of that era could have accurately cut them and then moved them into place. A rejected stone that was left back at the nearby quarry after being cut is even larger than the ones used in the foundation, with a total weight of 1,650 tons. Another stone enigma can be found just outside Cusco, Peru, which is home to the walls of Sacsayhuaman. The huge walls are made of dry stone and precisely cut, so they fit together with no adhesive. Each stone weighs anything up to 150 tons, and the construction of the walls is unlike anything else in either North or South America. So tight are the patterns that not even a single sheet of paper can be passed between or beneath the stones. The fact that they have rounded corners and the precise nature of the way they lean inward are evidence of advanced building skills. The best theory science can offer is that the ancient Incas put the stones together based on guesswork, and chipped away with them at stone hammers until they fit, raising and lowering them from the walls many times in the process. That seems both unlikely and impractical. There are even records of native Incans telling their Spanish conquerors that the walls predated their civilization, and they did not know how they were created. One scientist suggested that liquid sap from plants could have been used to soften the stones, but that wouldn't explain how they were later hardened again. So we have to consider that half an idea at best. To make a map, you need knowledge of an area. To make a map with an aerial perspective, you need to be looking down from above. That's easy now with planes, drones, and helicopters. If the Dashka stone is to be taken at face value, it would seem that someone, or something, was capable of making such a map 120 million years ago, when dinosaurs ruled the Earth. That's why some call it the map of the Creator, and consider it a blueprint used by the creator of our planet. It was discovered in 1999 and appears to represent a perfect map of not just the Ural Mountains, but 7,500 miles of land around it, including channels, rivers, and dams. There are also hieroglyphs on the stone which defy translation. Weighing 1 ton, the map is not only accurate in 2 dimensions, but 3, with the surface of the stone rising and falling just as the land does. Adding to the idea that the stone was crafted by hand, it's constructed in 3 layers: 7 inches of cement on dolomite, an inch of silicon-enriched glass, and a 0.1 inch of calcium on top, which makes it easier to read. The age of 120 million years comes from shell fossils found within the rock, but even if they got there by accident, the tablet would still have to be at least 3,000 years old at a minimum. Scientists have suggested that the fissures on the rock have happened by accident, and their resemblance to the Urals is a coincidence. We don't think anybody believes them. Returning to Peru, we find more evidence of the ingenuity of the Incas, or possibly the lost civilization that came before them. The Moray ruins are a series of concentric circles in the mountains close to Cusco, all leading down to a central recess pit. Testing that's been carried out on the circles reveals a strange phenomenon. The temperature of the rings can vary by up to 15 degrees from the warmest to the coldest. That makes some people believe that the rings were cut for agricultural purposes, and enabled the Incas to grow different crops at different points within the circles, keeping themselves fed all year long. That would require a far greater knowledge of both science and engineering than we currently credit them with. Could this be something else science has got wrong? They don't seem to be in any hurry to tell us, and they don't have any better ideas either. Ethiopian Christians looking for evidence of God will point you in the direction of the 11 churches of Lalibela, which are carved into the mountains of the country and are each formed from one singular block of granite. Modern-day experts believe that even creating one such church would take a workforce of 40,000 people several years. but the Ethiopians insist they were carved by angels overnight. An element of the supernatural would certainly explain how windows, doors, and tunnels were carved so intricately on and through the churches. The work has been done in a manner which allows light to filter in through the roofs, but also drains away water to prevent water damage. The amount of planning involved in labor like this is almost incalculable, but for an architect of the 12th century to be able to plan this is inconceivable. No tools known to be available at the time would have been capable of the job either. This is yet another baffling set of buildings, created by unknown hands and unknown skills. Rumors of ancient human-made caves in Longyao, China, had persisted for centuries, being passed down from generation to generation until one man named Wu Anai decided to put the rumors to the test in 1992. He bought a mechanical water pump and drained the pond in the local village, expecting to find nothing. Instead, he found out that what everyone thought was a pond was just one of 24 vast secret caves that had been hiding below Longyao since at least 2,500 years ago. The caves are more like caverns, 100 feet deep and covered in hand-carved lines and symbols which nobody has been able to translate. No known historical text contains any record of their construction, or any note of what they were used for. There's evidence of chisel work around the finer points of the carvings, but if chisels were used to create the caves, then thousands of people must have been involved. Why has nobody ever made a note of them? Who could have done this in the days before the Qing dynasty? Of all the ancient cities in the world that are still standing, only one was ever built on a coral reef, and that's Nan Madol in Micronesia. The intelligent design features stone and coral construction work on platforms, which sit on artificial islands, all connected by water channels and defended by an outer seawall. It would be a cutting-edge design for a city of the future, but it's from the distant past. We don't know quite when in the past it may have happened, though. Estimates range from the year 500 to 1100. Nan Madol is so mysterious that no record exists of how, when, or why it was built, or by who. Building a city on top of coral reef wasn't an easy or logical process, so it must have had some kind of special meaning, but it's been lost to time. There's also no native stone nearby to assist with the construction, so it must have been brought in from elsewhere and maneuvered into place without any levers, pulleys, or metal tools. With the rocks weighing as much as 50 tons each, how could that have been possible at the time? You guessed it, science doesn't know. Over in Laos, we have the Plain of Jars, fields of huge stone jar shapes scattered across the land across the northern mountains of the country. They were first discovered during the 1930s, but they date back to the Iron Age, making them more than 2,000 years old. There are over 3,000 jars in total, each weighing well over a ton and standing up to 10 feet high. The presence of lip rims suggested they once had lids, which have since rotted away. The legend that local people tell about them is that giants once lived upon this land and used the jars to store their rice wine. Scientists do believe they might have an idea of the right answer this time, though. They believe the jars were used as part of funeral ceremonies. Even if that's correct, they still can't give a satisfactory answer as to how the people of 500 BC would be able to create them in the first place. South America is rich with ruins and ancient curiosities, but the most staggering of them all is to be found in Bolivia's Pumapunku, near Tiwanaku. It's a site that predates even the Incas. The Incas loved it after they arrived here, though. They believed that it was so beautiful that Pumapunku was the place where all human life was created and then sent out into the world. It's easy to see why. The perfectly carved and intersecting stones and bricks are works of precision, but have no chisel marks or other indications of human carving. What human hands could have worked so delicately without leaving a trace of the labor? The temples feature irrigation systems to deal with the runoff of rainwater and boreholes in the rock that are so smooth they appear to have been drilled. But such feats were way beyond the capabilities of what we know of humankind when the site was built 3,000 years ago. Even after all these years, it is impossible even to drive the point of a needle between the perfectly secured stones. You can't even say that of most structures built in the present day. Who lived before the Incas and had such mastery of masonry? We're still looking for answers.
Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.